Mr. Sultan bin Ibrahim Al Mahmoud, Council General, Qatar Mission in Turkey, distinguished guests, fellow bankers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and privilege for me to be integrally part of this interesting and exciting evening. I have the Bloomberg Turkey anchor, she's here. In the afternoon, we had a very intense session. She asked me a few questions. If I answered those questions, which I did in the afternoon, I think I've done the session. Some of the questions which was put through were interesting. Perhaps you all should know with the changing face of the world, changing face of the financial service. We are in a defining moment in the global space. Last month, I was in Washington to attend the International Monetary Fund meeting. Contentious issues on the budget resolutions distracted all the economists, central bankers, politicians all over who were all assembled to discuss the structural agenda. But the distraction was more towards whether Congress could reach a consensus in terms of budget resolutions, whether the debt ceiling limits can be enhanced or not. Although we see the changing face of the world, we see politics and economics have to converge. I call this phase as a defining phase. This is a phase 3 of the financial crisis. So what has changed in the last 5 years? You tell me. It was in 2008, visibly, Lehman Brothers collapsed on September 14th, redefined the game. It was not confined to Lehman Brothers alone. It was Washington Mutual, Wachovia, Northern Rock. It transcended borders, infected even real economies. Financial economies are still living under pressure. They are converting as real. What has changed is the liquidity. What was defined as the global financial crisis was liquidity. Liquidity crisis has moved to funding, funding has moved to solvency, solvency has moved to sovereign crisis today. Of late, we have seen emerging markets have slowed down as well. When the crisis was visibly shaking the world, public-private partnership model was evolving. Consumer protection was guaranteed, ensuring liquidity was pumped by special drawing rights. This is what the change. G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20. Inclusive growth, the world at large. In developing world and developed world have to come together. That's the lesson we have learned. License regulations have failed. The auditors have failed. The rating agencies have failed. And again, we have understood systemic risk was evolving, which was not measured, managed, and controlled. That's what we learned. The solution was to set in for the global problems, global solutions. Universal standard in terms of accounting, valuation, securitization were all set in as universal standards. G20 meeting took place in London, Pittsburgh, Korea, operating St. Petersburg. Those changes have brought in policy measures which are responsive to see global growth is setting a new momentum. Global growth is setting consumer protection. Global growth is giving gross welfare to the mass. That's what the change we have witnessed. Financial economies have a long way to go in conversion. Printing money, improving the liquidity has inflated the stock market. The hard money was transcending borders. It has improved world over the stock market. But currencies were weakening. When you print money, it is an accommodating monetary policy. When you improve the money supply, they've seen the refraction world over. right from 2008. It's QE1, QE2, QE3. Now, when US was rightly recovering, the housing market was recovering, unemployment was measurable, manageable, controllable. Purchasing power parity was improving. Consumer spending was improving. We have seen the reflection, and Federal Reserve was confusion confounded when they pronounced in June 19 that they will unwind the bond buying programs of $85 billion. When they start spending out, they will start unwinding it. The result we see, the deceleration in the emerging markets. The currencies were in doldrums. It was Indian rupee, it was Indonesian rupiah, it was Thai baht, name it. Turkish lira has gone down by 9% year to date. Inflation is single largest economy today in the world. 20% of the world imports, 12% of the world exports. The dollar is still ranking as a universal currency. They can print money. They can afford to live with printing money and creating debt. That's what we are seeing. Phase 2 was 2011 when QE program was visibly inflating the financial markets. Phase 3 is what we are in now. Phase 3 is a telling story. Phase 3, we need to agree on the universal standard. We need to set a universal standard in terms of accounting. We need to set universal standards in terms of valuation, securitization, capitalization rules have to change in line with Basel III norms. Our balance sheet securitization has to be minimized. Tax havens have to be fixed. Again, offshore, onshore banking business model needs to converge in substance to see there is no defrauding in the name of financial institution. The trust has to be established between consumers and financial institutions. That was lost. Universal banking has to come to terms, and come to terms in such a way they go back to basic banking. That's what we want to do. Risk integration has to come in. Measure the risk in terms of credit, operational risk, and again, counterparty risk more than ever needs to be measured to see risk and return are internal. That's what we are doing. The conversion, the process of reorganization of the global economies, policy making in terms of setting this universal standing to your domestic agenda needs political will. That needs to be diarized, and there needs to be action. It's not just policy pronouncements, they need to be executed. The G20 decisions which we have pronounced needs to be executed to make sure these are actions driven by monetary policy and fiscal prudence. Alignment has to take place between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Then we are going to create global growth. Then we are going to create sustainable global growth. That's what a challenge we all have. That's what the dictum today. That's what the reality today. That's why regulators are redefining the game. What was once described as deregulation has become re-regulation today. That's the current reality. Today, the same rating agencies are redefining the game. America, as a function of democracy, is going through extraordinary political contention. Tea Party evolution apart, you have issues which needs to be consensus. We need consolidation in terms of debts. We need government expenditure to drive the growth. We need to make sure employment opportunities are created with real growth, not by printing money alone. That's what the reality in is. Look at Europe. The global growth, if you look at the bigger picture, it was in the spring meeting in Washington this year, 3.3%. Today, it was downgraded to 2.9%. That's what IMF said last month. Advanced economies are going to perform 1.2%. Look at America, how much they can do? 2%, possibly 2.2%. Today, non-farm payroll has released positive. It is a mess. If you look at the symptoms which you get, it's going to create more confusion in terms of QE happening. Long way to go. Europe, technically under recession. If you look at the monetary policy, which is centralized. Yesterday, there was a rate cut to promote growth. Austerity and value creations are mutually exclusive. You can't contain expenses alone and try to grow. You need development expenditure. You need to build bridges. You need to build aerodromes. You need to build road, rail networks to make sure creation in substance has to come in multiple forms. That's the challenge. Now, if you look at the bigger picture again, while signs of improvements are visible in the euro area, contagion impact on account of excessive debt over the gross domestic product is not ruled out still. It is not only Greece, it's Italy, Spain. Look at the gross to GDP. France is downgraded today. I saw Bloomberg was quoting today afternoon when I walked into the studio. Emerging markets. I was in July 19th, I was in Shanghai, China. Yes, China has slowed down a bit. 30 years, 9% growth, sustainable performance. Today, it's interconnected, interdependent world there. 7.5% is not a small percentage. Still, we're worried about economic engine of the world. China is going down. We're worried about, there's an anchor a few minutes before, he asked me a question. India, what's the future of India? India has done not less than 7% for 14 consecutive years. It's slowing down. 5.6% is what the prediction IMF says. India has got issues like Turkey today, current account deficit. They have to fix the current account deficit, fiscal consolidation is a challenge. But economic fundamentals are strong. The econometrics, shared econometrics, the consumerism, and again, the population which are energetic, spending power is the very strength of the demographic structure. Look at Turkish economy. 851 billion is not a small sum in substance. The growth between 3.5% to 4% is not ordinary. And again, you have challenges in terms of current account deficit. 7% as a gross domestic product, current account deficit is 7%, which is substantial, over 60 billion. You have to fix the hole. Inflation again is between 6 to 7%. You have to fix it. If the inflation is more than the growth, that's going to create stagnation. Stagnation will come in terms of overall economic growth. That needs to be fixed. I'm not going to go through the rituals of going through the presentation. I thought I should interact with you, to speak to you, and answer to you. That's a better way of managing it than showcasing the PowerPoint. So the substance is Turkish economy stable and functional? The answer is yes. It's withered away the crisis in stable form. The banking sector is doing reasonably well. Over 50 banks operating. It's visibly showcased. 12% last year in growth, asset expansion. And last 9 months, it's not an exception. Over 15% growth. Your non-performing loans are coming down. Your capital adequacy is in substance. And again, your asset expansion is visibly showing signs of improvement. The economy is going well, except I have to drive yesterday 3 hours almost from the airport. If you look at the Gulf economies, any questions on the global economy? Mr. Bank is here as well. We have made an investment from a Qatari bank, Commercial Bank of Qatar, one of the fine bank, is a partner now, and it's a good bank in making now. Any questions on the advanced economies, developing economies, financial market, stock market? currency market, bond market, property market? Nothing? Right. Let me skip the global economy. Yes, please. If anyone has got, you have the mic here, can you pass on the mic?
As well as Fed tapering possibility. How will that change the whole world in 2014? I'm not going, further down the street to 2015 or else, but, how about 2014? Shall we start worrying about the shortage of money flows into the emerging markets, including Turkey, in 2014, or is there still
you don't need to repeat, I heard you.
Yeah, probably everybody did.
Now, a very interesting question she's asking is Fed is going to stop the buying program. This 85 billion will continue. If you ask me, what are the conditions precedent to cutting down the bond buying programs? One is, as I said, employment in full scale. You have to reach that employment from 7.2 to 6.5%. And again, you need growth. In substance, you need real growth. It means government expenditure has to come. You cannot pass even Obamacare. How are you going to agree on government expenditure? Development expenditure has to come. It's not only housing market. Housing market is recovering. There are symptoms to see that mortgage business is back on track, not with subprime. We have learned lessons. And again, the purchasing power has to improve, inflation has to come. The interest rate is static till 2015. I doubt whether QE tapering can take place in 2014. This is my personal opinion. If you look at the conditions which are mutually inclusive, there's no reason why, if I'm the Fed chairman, I will not be rushing to judgment. So, if it happens, even if it assumes that it's going to happen, again, we had knee-jerk reaction when Federal Reserve Chairman in June, as I said, it was pure confusion. There was no clarity in the substance. I don't know whether you read the words. I was trying to interpret every bit of the literature. I couldn't read what is he trying to say. The reaction was, yes, the hot money, if it stops crossing the borders, the stock market will get impacted. But real economies will survive. Economic fundamentals needs to be measured. If you look at the bigger picture today, NASDAQ, look at what has happened to Twitter yesterday. Oversubscribed. The minute it was open, 73% up. What does it tell you? Too much liquidity floating around. It's an inflated world. World has to deleverage. Stock market has to deflate. American corporates are cash rich. American economy has to grow in total terms. Otherwise, you will create a world which is a bubble. The real growth lies in bringing sustainable growth in the world economy. Developed world and developing world has to align. As I said, interconnected, interdependent world. You need to set standards which are global. You don't want financial market volatility like what you've seen between June to September. It's extraordinary. Still a long way to go. In my opinion, another 3 to 4 years, we will have more fluctuations and speculators will try to gamble on the market. It's a policy decision, a political wisdom. He said, I will go for open market operation. What if America can do, Japan can do? He is spending money, open market operation. Trillions of Japanese yens are being printed. And again, Nikkei is up, now 38 to 39%. So is it real? Is it all sustainable? It's measurable. Can you sustain this kind of functional breakup in financial markets? The answer is no. So what's happening is manipulation, if I have to use the expression. That's the reality. Recently I got certified my 3rd doctorate on global governance. I said it, this crisis is an opportunity to correct. my message to the parliaments is very simple. I submitted thesis. I put in all my interviews, hundreds of interviews, right from Bloomberg to CNBC to CNN. Over the defining moments in the last 5 years, what was the decisions taken by policymakers, whether it is monetary policy or fiscal policy, and what does it mean to the global governance? And I still genuinely believe the world this crisis is an opportunity to correct, to set in ethical and moral governance. So it's mercurial in terms of financial markets. So it's not real. So any messages by the policymakers can create confusion in the market, and market gets inflated or deflated. Any questions? Any other questions on the global economics? Lady has asked. Some gents has to respond as well. No? Anyone from Qatar in here? No questions? Good. Let me move on to. I have a structured presentation. I don't want to read out. I want it to be participative and interactive for us to communicate. Right. Let me come to the Gulf economies. Gulf, I will finish at 8:30. I promise you. 8:30 we'll have a dinner, sir.
You are more sweeter than
Very kind. He said he doesn't want a dinner. I'm more sweeter. Do you believe? GCC economies are a very stable and functional economy. Why? Look at the numbers. 1.6 trillion. I've got a council general sitting here. See, 1.6 trillion is the GDP. Look at the current account surplus. 45% of the world oil, 25% of the world gas comes from the region. That's why it's a flashpoint. They produce over 20% current account surplus. Current account surplus is over 20%. While current account deficit in advanced economies are visible. They broke the record in terms of Maastricht Treaty in Europe. It was allowed only 6%. Some of the countries are in excess of over 12%. You have seen the reflection here. This is real. These are commodity-driven economies, and they produce real money. They run in fiscal surplus as well. Countries like Qatar, current account surplus is nearly 30%. $200 billion is the GDP, and they produce current account surplus nearly $58 billion. The fiscal surplus is between 7 to 8%. That's the kind of financial stability, economic progression they have. Take oil at $75, mind you. Oil at $75. That's the reality. Now, if you look at the split in terms of GDP, it is Saudi Arabia topping in the list, 718 billion. Again, next comes UAE, 390. Then comes Qatar, 200 billion. 186 billion is Kuwait, and Oman is 82 billion, and Bahrain is 28 billion. That's the scale of the operation. And again, I can go on individual. I'm not going to dwell on those specifics. As I said, fiscal and current account surplus. And that's the strength of this economy. And all of them have got long-term vision in terms of nation development strategy. Qatar has got economic vision 2030. And again, development strategy for 5 years. To converge with the budget breaker, fiscal policy is being pronounced. All these economies are spending, government expenditure drives a force. If you look at the fiscal policy between 2013 to 14, it is 377 billion. Between April 2013 to March 2014. 377, if you look at the split, 121 billion is the government expenditure of Saudi Arabia. And then 16 billion is the government expenditure of Kuwait. 69 billion is the government expenditure of UAE. And again, 45 billion is the government expenditure of Qatar. And 8 billion is the government expenditure of Bahrain. Sorry, you will get 377. It's not there in the slide. I'll show you afterwards. What I'm saying is, 5 years, trillions of dollars of projects have been pronounced. Trillions of dollars of projects have been pronounced. Those are the opportunities I want Turkish corporates to cash in. I want Turkish companies to come in and partake in the overall economic momentum. Airport, road, rail, network, construction, real estate sector are all flourishing. We need to make sure we invite Turkish corporates. Doha Bank is there, A Bank is there now, the form of commercial bank as well. So we can support you and fund you. Funded and non-funded business we can give. My exposure in terms of placement in the banking system in Turkey has increased 5-fold in the last 6-7 years. Look at the opportunity you have. And somebody asked me today, why you want investment with this kind of economic fundamentals. Here is a reporter, journalist, asked me a question, why you want money in Qatar? Why you are asking for investment? This gentleman asked me this question. Is it fact or fiction? He did. The reason why he asked, why I said you should come and invest in Qatar market is number one, Qatar exchange and UAE markets have been upgraded to MSCA status. If you look at the price earning multiples today, price earning multiples less than 10 times. Price to book value less than 2 times. Which part of the world you will get this? If you invest today in Qatar, just for money making, as an investment, today you invest in Qatar exchange, you're going to take by March, end of March, an annualized return of not less than 20%. By May, it will be upgraded to MSCI. Then the transparency will come in, more and more international investors will see. So you have an opportunity to invest. This is what I was trying to articulate to this gentleman. So that is a strength for you. That's an opportunity for you. You don't need to come in for long term if you don't want to. Again, we have GDP per capita moving in the right direction. There are challenges which we need to fix. We need more wider products in terms of financial markets, which is shaping up. People mix up the North Africa and the Gulf states. It is Tunisia, it is Egypt, it is Libya, it is now in the interim Syria as well. Those are flashpoints. What we need to look at is the opportunity in terms of infrastructure, power, water, transportation, telecommunications, and again, MSCI upgrade. Let me go to the specifics of Qatar. Any questions on the Gulf economies? Do you have any questions, lady? You have answered.
Any more investment from Qatar?
That's a good question.
This year, almost 10% of the FDI is going to come from Qatar.
Yeah, somebody asked me that question. I said Qatar investment is looking at various options as well. It's a good market to invest. The Turkish market is a good market. We have taken exposure. We have learned lessons, do's and don'ts. Like, any questions on the Gulf economies? No? Please. You don't have a hand mic? You don't have? Yeah. Can you pass on this? Yep.
Yes, my question is about the energy prices. And after the shale gas and the problem in Japan, and we know that all the energy prices affected, and the coal prices came down, and then there's a big pressure on the natural gas prices, and then oil. Of course, then we say GCC economy depends on oil prices, and 60-70%, and how will it affect the whole economy?
Good question. See, shale gas is a revolution. It's a hydraulic fracturing. Is it environment friendly? Nobody has seen the long-term impact of shale gas. Americans have invested and they want to be self-fulfilling in terms of energy security. Rightfully so. But the cost of revenue models are not visible. Is it energy efficient? Is it environment friendly? Is it a sustainable model? I have my doubts. Now, you have created alternates. solar, wind, biofoam, biofuel. Those are options. Again, fossil fuels are tested and proven. It is cost effective. We have seen OPEC is controlling the supply chain. Still, non-OPEC plays a bigger role in terms of overall supply. Now, will it have a long-term impact in the pricing? And I don't think with the energy security in the emerging markets, which are incrementally adding the growth in the world. Today, 60% of the growth comes out of emerging markets, incrementally. They don't have energy security in substance. They depend on the Gulf on account of proximity with India and China. So that's why Qatar has played a prime mover advantage in terms of LNG. Diversification as well as distribution strategy which Qatar has deployed has been well respected. And today, the supply chain has been well established. Will it have long-term impact? The answer is no. On the contrary, if the dollar is going to get further weakened, people will hedge the risk by buying commodity futures, the oil price will go up. The gas price, even though there's a glut in the gas price, as on rate will go up. I don't have any ambiguity in what I'm saying. America can pump oil. Where the shale gas is sustainable in terms of cost and revenue model, I have my doubts. Good question. Anything else? Gentlemen.
Yes, on this corner, extreme corner rather.
I'm seeing you.
Yeah. Now that you're talking about the oil prices, we just now watching on the TV that Iran is in the picture now in terms of in spite of all these growths, we haven't seen the markets coming back to those peak levels of the 2008 or 2009. Like if I talk about the Kuwait stock market index or the Tadawul, and they all remain very suppressed, you know, the activity is not robust.
Market is a perception. If you look at it's an attitude. If you with the advent of Arab Spring, as I said, when the Tunisian crisis cropped up, I was interviewed by Bloomberg. The market went by 20-30% within a month's time. En bloc, market capitalization went over $100 million in a span of 1 month. If you look at the interpretation of the Gulf states, they think it's one world, Arab world. That has had an impact in real response to changing dynamics of the region as such. Now, that's why it's an opportunity. That's why I'm saying why you should invest in the stock market, especially when you have MSCI upgrade in the making. Now, the economic fundamentals are visible. If it gets listed world over by emerging market status, from frontier it is going to move to emerging markets by May, I think the prices will move up. Prices will move up because I know living in that market, if you invest today, you can make an annual return of 20%. Which part of the world will win? Twitter has not made money in the last 6 years. It's speculation. It's overdone. Now, if you want to look only for capital gain, that's a different prospect. If you look at the price earning multiples, if you have the economic fundamentals with the speculations. So I'm absolutely measuring there's a bigger opportunity for these stocks to come up once it gets upgraded. Any questions? Let me move on to Qatar. Qatar is a telling story. It is the substance in terms of economic progression, social progression, and the political progression. For the last 17 years, 18 years, visibly, a small country, 11,940 square kilometers today, is a political statesman. The Darfur of Lebanon or Syria are in Security Council. And in terms of social progression, whether it's education, Qatar borrowed money in the international markets 16, 17 years before. They didn't put in flyovers or aerographs. They got into industrial expansion. They invested in education. That made all the difference. The priorities were right. And the result is what you're seeing today, 15 years of economic surplus, investment surplus. That's good governance, good model. They also channelized the investable surplus sovereign funds to Arab brethren to bring in political peace, to support freedom and democracy. That's a different statesmanship. And again, economic progressions, I don't need to elucidate further. Everyone knows the underlying fundamentals are strong. You extrapolate for next 5 years or 10 years, we have FIFA 2022 coming up. We have huge expansion in the making. We have non-hydrocarbon is going to grow not less than 9.1%. Aggregate growth in the next 5 years is not less than 5 to 6%. The current will run in current account surplus, it will run in fiscal surplus between 7 to 8%. That's the level of underlying convergence between politics, economics, and social progression we have. Thus, it's a jewel in the GCC, I should say. It's a joy to see the growth. A small country today is visibly showcased as a model governance. That's the substance. That's real. And again, there's a transition this year. A living monarch passing over the reins to the crown prince, and he becomes father Amir, and new Amir has taken over after having 10 years of intense understanding of the overall governance. That's really something remarkable in substance. Now you have a blend of new generation as well as experienced governance to take it forward to the next level. So it's a good country to live, good country to associate, and again, good governance in substance to measure and manage, to associate. And that's what it is. I'm not going to, vision is there, long-term challenges, and again, national development strategy in terms of human, social, economic, and environment. And again, if you look at the underlying economics, as I said, nearly 30% is the current account surplus. And you can see Doha Bank, the D-shaped building. Many of my friends here, many bankers are here. They all have business with us. So I invite all of you to come to Qatar. If you come to Qatar, come to Doha Bank as well. This is the West Bay. Qatar energy sector is driving the flows, and development strategies is a telling story. And World Cup, we are getting set. Now, government expenditure is going to drive, and the budget has been well set in to take it forward. Financial market is improving. There's a single regulator now. The financial markets, financial center, again, central bank, onshore or offshore, everything is integrated under Qatar Central Bank as a unified regulator. That's shaping up well. Qatar Exchange is shaping up well with the New York Stock Exchange as a collaborative partner, over 12%. We have universal standard in terms of setting. Now, Qatar rating agencies are evolving, and as I said, it's got upgraded as well. This is the Qatar Financial Center. Many global financial institutions are setting their footprints now. This is the Qatar Education City. This is the Qatar Science and Technology Park. Let's move on to the final part of the discussions. 8:30 is the benchmark. Qatar and Turkey. When we said 10 years before I saw Turkey is upcoming. I saw the light in terms of Turkish economy. We have taken the maximum exposure right from 2002 onwards. And 2006 we commenced our operations. At the time the bilateral trade was only $2 to $3 billion. Today, even 3 years before it was only $9 billion. Today it's $20 billion. Topping the list is UAE, $11.8 billion. And again, Saudi Arabia, $5.8 billion. And the rest of the other states, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, put together the balance. It's moving in the right direction. Import, export, if you look at it, like oil or gas or petrochemicals are getting imported, steel or electricals or constructions are getting exported, apparels, clothing accessories are exported. The bilateral relationship is moving in terms of trade. Investments, again, There are growing opportunities for sovereign funds or private equities or foreign investors to come into Turkey and invest in joint ventures, investment partnerships. Those are growing opportunities we see the light. At the same time, we also want to showcase, any questions on Qatar or the Qatar-Turkish trade? No questions? Everything is understood. This table is full of ladies except one gentleman in the corner. No questions from this side? No? You have any questions? You asked me very fine questions. Yes.
I have asked several questions to you.
Yes.
No one left.
Did I answer all your questions?
Yes.
Did I miss any of your questions which you asked?
You have explained a lot of things here also in your presentation.
So what were the questions you asked? What were the questions you asked today? Can you repeat the questions? And I just want to make sure all these questions are answered.
It was a 15 minutes interview, so
Yes.
we
No,
cannot
only the questions. Answers I will say.
repeat all of them because time's up for the meeting.
Time is up for the meeting. That's the right answer as such. I think a politely saying, wind up. Right. So no questions on Turkish. I'll move on to the opportunities. Opportunities are visible. In terms of project space, as I said, it's a huge opportunity. In terms of sectoral opportunities, it is construction or real estate, telecommunications, oil and gas, power, electricity. Those are all growing opportunities because urban development in the Gulf states is a bigger opportunity for us to realize. Now, I don't want to get into the micros of it. The presentation is available with my chief representative here, Mr. Nazi. So you're entitled to get any information which you need. Our job is, I always say, we're not doing anything but building the bridges between these two blocks. That's what I do around the world. Today, as a sustainable performer, my job is to make sure I add value wherever I go. It's not necessarily confined to banking. Banking is only incidental. We set up commercial gates around the world, whether it is Sydney or Seoul, or Tokyo or Shanghai, Singapore, Frankfurt, London, Toronto, or full-scale operations. We keep disseminating knowledge. We keep learning from you. Because of you, our relationship, whether you're a financial institution or a customers, corporate, or individuals or institutions, we add value to each other. These commercial gates are supposed to support financing these corporates, Turkish corporates. We want them to come. There are many, many good corporates. We have learned bad lessons as well. I'm not ruling out. But we want, majority of the lessons are good. We want Turkish companies to come and set up their business. Project advisories we'll give you. We will support these projects. We will support your domestic franchise in terms of funding. Loan or working capitals or bill discounting or bill purchase, we will support you. Non-funded business, whether it is LCs or guarantees or acceptance, we will support you. And we want you to come and partake and see the economic momentum. Whether Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or Kuwait, or Qatar, Doha Bank is there, and it's a sustainable relationship. That's what we believe in. That's the very purpose for which I'm here. It's a joy for me to come and again meet my friends. Over the years, I have good friends in Turkey, and I enjoy visiting Turkey. That's very precisely the reason why I'm here this evening. And Doha Bank and Qatar is committed for the bilateral values in substance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.